Mazzy here, and this is the year 2020. So if you're watching this 50 years in the future, this is a pretty fracked up year, 2020. So I'm doing a video, I'm calling it Good Vibes, Good Vibrations, Good Vibes. And the music you're listening to while I discuss this and showcase some records from my collection is the music of Hemp Lionel, not to be confused with Hemp. This is Lionel Hampton, one of the premier early first vibraphone players who really made the vibraphone a class and important instrument in the world of jazz. The other person who I don't have specifically any solo work here is Red Norvo. Those two really kind of pioneered the vibraphone, took it from an instrument sitting in the back of an orchestra, sitting around with these friggin' mallets, and moved into jazz. So I'm gonna showcase some records in my collection now. I'm gonna just do it all over the place, you know, vibraphones, xylophones, marimba. They're related, they're not the same. A marimba has a wider range musically and has used wood mallets and they're wood bars that you hit. It's a very more of an ethnic music in a lot of ways, but it's a beautiful sound. And a vibraphone are made out of metal, steel plates, and has also foot pedal, very much like a piano, and a shorter range. I'm gonna just go through this fast, as fast as I can in my videos, which is not always so fast, and showcase some of my favorite records. And some are featured by the vibraphone player, and some have actually the vibraphonist featured on albums from other artists. Now, there are several glaring omissions, and I'm sure as you watch this, you're gonna, yell out, "Mazzy, you forgot Gary Burton." I did forget Gary Burton. I used to have a handful of Gary Burton albums on ECM, great vibe player, and I realized I don't have any. I'm sure I have him on some albums by other artists, but that's something I need to rectify because I'm a fan of Gary Burton, and I think there's several others too. So anyway, Lionel Hampton actually, again, was one of the first players, and he started playing with the Benny Goodman band, and it became more in the big band era, and then the bebop era, Lionel Hampton. Not so much in the bebop, but as we go along, in no particular order, you'll hear more. These are two collections I have of Benny Goodman. This is from Benny Goodman, 1938, and Benny Goodman, 1938, 1939. And Lionel Hampton is all over this, and he does solos on this. So it was a great sound. A lot of the big band in the bebop era, vibraphones were pretty popular. So I just love the sound, and I think it's really kind of a cool instrument. I will show a few rock albums that feature vibraphone players, not necessarily in the band, but use them on certain tracks. One of my favorite vibraphone players is Milt Jackson. Milt Jackson really was early in the whole bebop period. This is a collection from Savoy, so this is right in the midst of the bebop era. This is a reissue from the 70s on Savoy, and Savoy was a jazz label that Charlie Parker recorded on, and many other amazing artists. Great artists. Here's a couple of solo records by Milt Jackson. Jazz and Samba, during the whole Samba, when Samba was big, with Getz and Gilberto in the early 60s. And this is with the great pianist Tommy Flanagan, Jimmy Heath, Connie Kay, producing the exciting jazz sounds with relaxed sensitivities, playing authentic Brazilian bossa nova. Milt Jackson at the vibe right there. Look at that, right? He's an incredible artist, and he would go on, and I'll show you some collaborations he did too. But the big infamous thing with Milt Jackson is, well, before that, let me show you. Let me go here. Here's a couple other ones with Milt Jackson. Bags and Train, his nickname was Bags. Train is obviously John Coltrane. Fantastic album on Atlantic Records. And this is recorded by Tom Dowd, and Milt Jackson, John Coltrane, Hank Jones on piano, Paul Chambers and Connie Kay on drums. Fantastic record. Again, the great interplay between, they're almost like it's a featured album of the two of them. John Coltrane with his fabulous saxophone, and Milt Jackson on vibes. Very good vibes. That's all you can ask for, right? And of course, Bags Groove. This is Miles Davis and the Modern Jazz Giants, and it features Miles Davis, Milt Jackson, Thelonious Monk on piano, Percy Heath on bass, and Kenny Clarke on drums. Another fantastic record with a vibraphone of Milt Jackson is heavily featured. Wonderful record. Now, Milt Jackson would go on to put together what became sort of a super group, and I'm finding a lot of people, when I watch these videos that are all over YouTube, there's not a lot of love for the Modern Jazz Quartet. I think people think they're too sedate and too middle of the road, and I'm a big fan. Very gorgeous. Sometimes they fuse with classical and ambient music and orchestration. This is an album I have both on mono and stereo, and this is a gorgeous record. This is a Modern Jazz Quartet play One Never Knows, and it's a film score to No Sun in Venice by John Lewis. John Lewis composed this. He's a piano player for the Modern Jazz Quartet, which also included Milt Jackson on vibes, Percy Heath on bass, and Connie Kay on drums. Mono and stereo versions of this amazing, wonderful, beautiful soundtrack. And this is this is actually the first, in the 70s when I was getting into jazz, playing records in the record store while I was working there. And it just had a good feel, a good Spanish sound. Not like, but not unlike Miles Davis' Sketches of Spain, but a little more classical, but so is Sketches of Spain, the Gil Evans collaboration with Miles Davis. This is a collaboration with the Modern Jazz Quartet and Alindo Almeida, the Spanish guitar player, and it's a gorgeous collection. It's got One Note Samba by Antonio Carlos Jobim, that was famous from Getz and Gilberto period. It's just some John Lewis compositions, and it's got a Bach fugue in A minor on side one as well. Modern Jazz Quartet on Atlantic Records with Orindo Almeida. Beautiful record. Another one with Modern Jazz Quartet, we got John Lewis again, Percy Heath, Connie Kay, and Milt Jackson. Pyramid, also on Atlantic Records. I think most of their entire career was on Atlantic. And then this is a later recording, The Last Concert, the Modern Jazz Quartet. This is a 70s issue, as I recall, 1975. And this is recorded in 1974 at Avery Fisher, kind of a farewell concert on location. And again, some beautiful, beautiful work. A double album. Again, I got this one back in the 70s because I was picking up a lot of their records there. And then a record, and I've showed this before on my channel several times, it got me into jazz in around 1971 or 2, right when 72. This is a CTI collection, because when I bought my first component system in 72, this is one of the records they were playing. The opening track, Speedball, Stanley Turrentine and Milt Jackson, amazing collaboration and a beautiful sounding record. The opening track, Speedball, just jets out of the gate with this great Stanley Turrentine saxophone and Milt Jackson vibraphone, but beautiful record. There you go. I highly recommend it when it's a little bit, has that slickness that you expect on a CTI record. And probably the photograph is by Pete Turner, who licensed a lot of his cover photographs. Let's see, doesn't say. I'm sure it says somewhere, but I'm not paying attention here. Gorgeous record. Let's like move into a different genre, and then we'll come back to jazz. The whole Exotica scene, the whole lounge music scene was just ripe with marimba and vibraphones and Martin Denny. I mean, I have a whole lounge Exotica section upstairs, a flip-through bin, and so I just picked this Enchanted Sea. You know his Exotica records by Martin Denny, Les Baxter, a whole slew of them, and vibraphone was a big part of this music and throughout it. So I don't have any names, unfortunately, who are playing this. This is another record that's kind of from that same genre from 1957, and it's a record I bought originally because of the cover. Look at this. We're talking about, we're vinyl addicts, a lot of us in the vinyl community, and who have these massive collections and just who continually buy records. But look at this. What a fracking wonderful, scary cover. Percussive jazz. This comes out of the whole thing with the provocative percussion, persuasive percussion records on Command records that are about ping pong, left, right, stereo effect records in a way, or stereo. Test out your bachelor friggin' expensive hi-fi in the late 50s, early 60s. The Enoch Light records. This is not an Enoch Light record. And on this is Peter Appleyard playing the vibes, and he's featured throughout this entire record. You can find this cheap. It's a fun record for the cover, and it's got Man from the Golden Arm, like a Bernstein song from the motion picture, which is actually junkie music, junkie song. Dragnet, Witchcraft, Harlem Nocturne, Peter Gunn. And speaking of Peter Gunn, I pulled these two records because, let's see here, two different players, Larry Bunker and Vic Feldman, are all over it on vibes of these two records. The great film composer Henry Mancini. If you don't know Henry Mancini, you've been living under a rock for the last 50 years, or weren't born 50 years ago. But Pink Panther theme and Dragnet and Peter Gunn. I don't know if she did Dragnet actually, but these are great records, and they're fun records. I think this one, the first one, was the first record that won, I think it won a Grammy for Album of the Year. This is 1958, I believe, 58, 59. But great records and a lot of vibraphone throughout both of these. I'm skipping way ahead before I go back, so I'm not going in any particular order. Baja Marimba Band. This Baja Marimba Band were kind of a Julius Wechter. All these Jewish guys pretend they were Latin guys, right? Herb Alpert, with Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, A&M Records. That's the founder of A&M Records. Also, this is on A&M. They were sort of almost like the B team of the Tijuana Brass, but it was a Baja Marimba band full of, Mexican music. But the marimba was a big part of this band, even though it says it right in the name. So you'd expect that. So they're throughout it here. But white guys, not politically correct in 2020, not anytime, but these are fun records. Along Comes Mary, the Association song, She's Leaving Home. Windy, Sounds of Silence, and of course, that great Mexican number, Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, jumping in and out of some things here. I'm going to save that guy to last. Probably a record that you see in the bins, the dollar bins or the $3 or $4 bins a lot, who doesn't get a lot of love because people think he's a little, again, middle of the road too, but I'm a big fan of Cal Tjader, and I believe he lived in San Francisco for a while because I would see him a lot in the early 70s, mid 70s. Cal Tjader made some great records. This is San Francisco Moods on Fantasy Records, a song called Union Square, Grant Avenue Suite. Viva Cepeda, well, you know what that is. Orlando Cepeda was a great pitcher for the San Francisco Giants. Sigmund Stern Groove. There's a place in San Francisco called the Sigmund Stern Grove. Coit Tower, Tjader. So this is a fun one, a greatest hits. Soul Sauce, incredible fun Latin fused vibraphone record, really enjoyable. Several Shades of Jade, Tjader on Impulse, on Verve, my mistake. Verve Records. And a later one from the 70s. This is a fun, middle of the road, but really a beautiful combination of Tjader and Carmen McRae, vocalist, great jazz pop singer. This has a lot of notes by Leonard Feather. Actually, this is the early 80s, I think. This was recorded in San Francisco in 1982. So this is a lot later, but Tjader, really great. If you want to slip into the vibes cheaply, Tjader may be a way to go. This is going in a whole different Africana, Ethiopian direction. Mulatu of Ethiopia, what a great record. All over the marimba, and he has just a lot of records that I need to dive into. So there's a lot of African music too, and Ethiopian music, and it's not just Latin centric or jazz centric either. So Mulatu of Ethiopia, this is a record from 1972. Before I end up with one of my favorite jazz artists, again, I forgot, or I don't have a handful of jazz people, so there are many, many more. So let's kind of go through some rock and roll pieces. Buzzy Linhart. Buzzy Linhart actually just passed away, as I recall, in the last year or two. He's a cult artist. I met him several times because he lived in Berkeley in those later years. This is a record from the 80s with some Beatles songs and Nicky Hopkins, Danny Sewell, Till Bogart, Lawrence Juber from played with Wings and McCartney for a while is on here. It's a signed copy I got from Buzzy in 1982. There he is. Another claim to fame too, he played vibes on Jimi Hendrix's album Electric Ladyland. So there's some vibraphones on there played by Buzzy Linhart. There's vibraphone all over several Tom Waits albums. I just picked this Rain Dogs as one example. Does it say here? We got I think I won't tell you. I won't tell you who plays vibes on here because I can't find it right now. Oh, there's Michael Blair on marimba. So there's marimba on here by Michael Blair. Yeah, Michael Blair plays marimba on several tracks. Tom Waits. Tom Waits really mixes up all types of instruments. I mean, fun stuff. Really fun stuff. Another artist who has vibraphones on many of his records, and that's Frank Zappa with the Mothers. All over Uncle Meat. This is over-ambitious, amazing, wonderful, classical, avant-garde, jazzy artist statement in so many ways. And there's vibraphones all over this record. Yep, there you go. Also, the one that became a soundtrack to one of the strangest motion pictures ever. I remember seeing it in a theater when it came out as 200 Motels. Again, full orchestra, bizarre Ringo Starr's in it. There's the Beatle connection. Theodore Bickel, the Jewish folk singer, is on here. That's fun too. But whenever I think of vibes, for some reason, I always think of Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast on apostrophe, Frank Zappa. I love the vibes on this. Side one of this, I mean, this is one of those records that it's been overdone. Maybe a lot of people don't want to hear it now, but side one of this is incredible with Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, Nanak Rubs It, and St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast, right? Just those alone, vibraphones galore. Another one is the fabulous, when they were a trio, the Youngbloods. This is a 70s later when they were a Bay Area band as a trio. Of course, you might know Jesse Colin Young and the Youngbloods and Banana, and their famous version of Get Together. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, trying to love one another right now, especially right now, please. But the opening track, Ride the Wind, a 9-minute, 10-second, beautiful song, kind of a folky, jazzy rock, and it's got some beautiful vibes on it. And just love that. An amazing track. One of the most amazing singles the Rolling Stones ever did was Under My Thumb, and Under My Thumb has a great vibraphone all over it. Love that song. San Francisco band that doesn't get a lot of love, that it's one of my favorites, won a great debut on Capitol Records in 68 or 69, I believe, Sounds of Champlin, Loosened Up Naturally. Saw them twice, fairly early on, and there's a song, Get High, that's 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Beautiful record. If you ever see this record, pick it up, because they were a horn-based band, and this came out, maybe it came out in 68 or 69, it came out around the time of the first Chicago Transit Authority, and they were the two bands that had full horn bands, aside from Blood, Sweat, and Tears. But a little more psychedelic, a little more jazzy than Chicago, and more psychedelic in some ways. But Get High has this beautiful vibraphone solo throughout it, and it just goes on. It's very ethereal and very, just really wonderful. In fact, it even says vibes right there. And of course, one of the copies, I have two copies of this. One of them has the F word, and then the Capitol Records art people had to scratch it out on later copies. I forgot where it is exactly. But what a beautiful cover and beautiful record. I highly recommend this record. Very good. Okay, I saved my favorite vibraphone player till the end, and someone that you can really get into now, mainly because of Tone Poet, Music Matters, but these two on Tone Poet, Bobby Hutcherson. I'm fortunate enough to have seen Bobby Hutcherson about 4 or 5 times, because he lived again in the Bay Area in the 70s before his death. This is Oblique. This was recorded in the early 60s, but didn't come out until Japan, I believe, in the 80s. And then finally as a Tone Poet just in the last couple of weeks. Highly recommended, a gorgeous sounding record. Herbie Hancock, John Stinson, and Joe Chambers. So anything by Bobby Hutcherson, this would be a great place to start if you want to get into some jazz vibes, you want it accessible, you want it great sounding. This is a highly recommended record. And of course, I think I've showed this like 3 times on different videos. Also is The Kicker, another Tone Poet that came out in the last year or so. Beautiful record. A couple of the records that he's on, but he's not the band leader. This is another recent one, Duke Pearson featuring Bobby Hutcherson. A little later than those first two Tone Poets. This is also a Tone Poet, a single panel, not a gatefold. Duke Pearson, this is a beautiful 1968 recording that is a little soulful, a little Eastern raga-like, right in that 1968 pocket of sound that you would expect, kind of like sexy with your lady or man record. Really great. Another great record. This is one of my favorite Grant Green records, with Grant Green, Signpost from North Beach, San Francisco. This happens to be a Music Matters Jazz, so I don't know what's available. It's probably going to be, I would say, in the classic series eventually, maybe, of Blue Note. Larry Young, Bobby Hutcherson, Elvin Jones, along with Grant Green. Again, some amazing vibes. If you want something a little more out there, a little more challenging, but gorgeous all the same. If you don't know, have any albums by trombone leaders, Gretchen Moncour III. Look at this gorgeous psychedelic, almost like cover. But again, this was recorded in 1964. Look at that. What a mod cover for 1964. This is a little more out there, but really interesting. extremely interesting record. And this is a larger band with Lee Morgan on trumpet, Gretchen Moncour the third on trombone, Jackie McLean alto sax, Bobby Hutcherson, of course, on the vibraphone, Bob Cranshaw bass, and Tony Williams on drums. Great record. This is a Music Matters Jazz, so this version is not available. But there's our guy. There's the great Bobby Hutcherson. Good vibes, really good vibes. And that's all the vibes I have this evening. Tell me your vibe, players. Many more I missed. I told you Gary Burton is an obvious missing link here. Other great marimba players, xylophone players, you've seen in the movies, you've heard on records. Tell me some of your great tracks with vibraphones. In the Beatles, When I Wake Up Early in the Morning, I'm Always Sleeping, there's a version with vibraphones on the anthology, the Beatles anthology. It was not in the final mix and not used. So, even the Beatles. Mazzy loves you. Mazzy has good vibes. I hope you all have good vibes tonight.